Good morning, everybody. This is Kim Hickey here for your daily broadcast of Live at 9. I feel like we're really getting to know each other now. I'm seeing some of your faces every morning. Hopefully you're not sick of seeing all of ours. We're, as always, trying to get the latest information out to you in a timely manner and help you in any way possible. I'm pretty excited this morning. We have, of course, our coach, Michael Bennett, with us, but we also have Patrick Connell, who is the CEO of ARS. Patrick is one of our highest revenue generating shops that we have at ATI, and it's based all on fleet business. So they'll tell you a little bit about that, and hopefully you're going to pay attention. This morning, we're going to have some best practices for acquiring fleets and, reaching out right now to other essential businesses. And there's no time like the present to make things happen. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to both of you gentlemen. And hello. Good morning, Patrick. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Kim. How are you? Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Patrick. And again, yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us. For those of you that don't know, Patrick Connell is the president and CEO of ARS Truck and Fleet. That is a Delaware-based fleet-only business. So it's 100% focus, 100% profit center based upon a fleet model. ARS is quite honestly a single solution for anything fleet related and has been incredibly innovative in what it's been able to do, creating divisions that handle light duty, medium duty, and heavy duty in-house. Which really gives, I think, ARS the ability to touch all different sizes of fleets, from mom and pops and landscapers, all the way up to major delivery, supply, and logistics companies. ARS has a very robust mobile service going out on site and on the road to provide, not only service but roadside service. And quite recently, Patrick, if you haven't had enough pain in your life or created enough opportunity, you've now gotten into the body shop world, creating a body shop entity specifically, again, related to fleet preparation and fleet repairs. So although I realize this model may be a little out of scale for some of you listening this morning, the thought is, as we're in some very turbulent and difficult times, it's really important to think about additional things that we can do to make connections, to expand the demographic of our customer base and explore new opportunities that might help us, broaden our offerings as we look at this crisis that we're running through, and really, quite honestly, as an opportunity to build forward into what we do. So, as a profit center, being able to expand fleet. So if you're a small business and you really haven't dabbled in fleet, what might be some of the initial steps that we could get into that let you understand what fleet might be capable of and how you enter it. And if you have a presence in fleet, how can you take that next step to really expand your ability to be more broad or more forward focused on fleet? So Patrick, you and I, over the years have had quite a bit of opportunity to talk, but it's my opportunity to be a little bit quiet at this point and let you talk. But as we
Is that possible?
Yeah, I know. It's really rough, Tim. I know. But great importance to set things up so people realize what and who we're talking with today. But if you don't mind, I just want to ask you some questions. We have some basic building block premise questions that maybe you can help direct some of these curious fleet forward thinking shops, ones that want to get into it. So if you don't mind, I'd just like to ask you some questions and give us your thoughts on some best practices.
Sure. Jump in, Mike. Let's get rolling.
All right. So, most of us come from, exactly. Most of us come from a very general independent repair world. If you had to think of three things that you have to know before you jump into the fleet world, what would those top three things be?
Good question to start with, and an easy one to answer. Am I equipped? Am I prepared? Am I staffed? Have I educated my staff? Have we discussed this new profit center and how we're going to go about the processes and the procedures that it's going to take to do that? So really what I'm saying is, have you started with the basics? Have you looked at, can I do this? Do I have the equipment? Do I have the right people? Something in fleet that we all have to remember is when you're going and talking with a potential client and you're offering services, you really have to be prepared for what could come next. Yes, we need help. Yes, we have trucks. Yes, we have little trucks, big trucks. Are you ready to answer those questions? So am I equipped? Am I staffed? Have I discussed it with my staff, and have we set a plan? Those three things are probably paramount before you do anything.
Okay. An excellent answer. It lends itself, quite well into our next question, the second question, which is, what sort of groundwork is necessary for a business looking into this new avenue, this new profit center? What do you need to work on before you approach a fleet? Do you offer anything up front, or do you wait to kind of hear what they want?
Another good question. And, the answer to that one is, really what you want to do when you're looking at first introducing yourself to a fleet, looking at groundwork, what you should do before approaching anybody, before having any discussions at all, is really learn as much as you can about that prospective company. What's their involvement in the community? How long have they been in business? What's their core business? Learn as much as you can about that company before you even walk in the door. Once you're in the door, I would suggest you continue learning about that company. Ask for a tour. Ask about what their main profit centers are. You can learn so much from understanding what they do. And as they're telling you about themselves, you can already start to put together, some ideas of how you might be able to help them. I think that's critical in your first entry, into a client.
Yeah, and I think great advice. I mean, I know one of the things as I talk to shop owners, the most intimidating thing is, how do I start that conversation? How do I know what it is they want? So that piece of advice of, it's almost like we talk about with ownership and leadership of employees. Don't necessarily assume, just ask questions. And oftentimes the answer gives up exactly what it is you need to move forward. So great piece of advice.
And you should also know, Mike, in that situation, most fleets don't really know what they want. They know they have a sore point. They know it's not enjoyable that they have a fleet and that they got to, take care of a fleet. It's generally not their core business. Most of them don't know what to ask. So understanding where they are is really critical. Most of them don't understand what the fleet market might offer them. They just know that they've been getting trucks fixed and that's what is the way it's supposed to go. So much more to it if you just actively listen.
Great advice. So, what does the marketing model look like? How are you figuring out who these people are? Who's the best person in a prospective company to talk to?
If they're large enough and they have a fleet manager always. Now, the key person to get to is the owner. If it's a locally owned business, you want to eventually build that relationship with an owner, but you don't want to build that relationship with an owner and then have it go downstream to a fleet manager that this is the guy you're going to use. Our experience has been clear cut in that area. That fleet manager can harbor some resentment a lot of times. They like to know that they're doing their job, that they've selected their vendors. It can build a better relationship. So if the opportunity's there, you want to go to the fleet manager first and work your way in the door and then build a relationship moving up. You need that owner to see you as a partner, but you also need him to see you as a partner after you've established a relationship with the guy who actually handles the fleet.
Excellent. And so obviously for smaller fleets, a smaller landscape company, some sort of a local business, if they don't particularly have a fleet manager or it's just, the office manager, it's even more critical then to ultimately get in front of that owner. Absolutely.
Ownership is where you want to be. You want to build the same type of relationship with that owner as you would with a retail customer coming in the door. It's the number one, it's the key thing that you can do is to build a partnership as high up the chain as you possibly can. If you can only get to the owner's brother, if you can only get to the vice president, whatever you can do to keep moving up the chain is the best way to go.
Perfect.
I'm sorry. I'm probably grinning like a fool right now because everything I'm hearing it always goes back to the basics, and the same way we're approaching this fleet is the same way with regular customers that come in, right? We need to know what's important to them. How can we provide solutions for their problems? Are we talking to the right person? If it's somebody's, do you need to get with a parent of a college student to discuss it or whatever? So sorry, in case you're looking at me like, why is she grinning?
It's an excellent point, Kim, and you're right. I mean, the parallels, and Patrick, I'm sure you're going to say it at some point. we always think about fleet being this different world, speaking a different language, being from a different planet. It's really not. If you kind of understand best practices in the general world, there's not that much modification that might be necessary applying it to a fleet model. It is just about perfecting it. But, just to touch on the beginning of that question again, from just a pure marketing point of view, whether that's a message you put out or the way you identify these companies, anything really quick you could maybe say there about how you figure out either getting them to come to you or you to them, or which one of those is more important?
So generally I answer that. I get that question a lot. From the marketing aspect, I think it really starts with the operation, not the marketing. It starts with your offering. It starts with what you're capable of doing. It starts with your differentiators. Any of us can market oil changes, brakes, tires, whatever that may be. Most of the time, that's not fleet. That's not speaking fleet. You need to focus on the differentiators. Once you decide what you're going to do in the fleet market to attract people, you've already started your marketing right there. Then it's the normal vehicles that you typically use. Unless you're going to hire outside salespeople to come in, you can use the same channels you do in a retail business, phone, text, emails, whatever that may be. But I would suggest that the messaging surrounds what makes you different, not so much your price or your service.
Okay. Not to get stuck on this, but would you mind giving us just an example or two of what are some of your differentiators so someone might understand what you mean by that?
So I'll just use last week for an example. Some of the things that we measure on a regular basis. 91% of all vehicles we serviced last week were picked up and delivered. We wash and clean everything. We offer fleet management. We monitor all of their service intervals. We have, for this period of time, sanitizing services. We do all kinds of things every day, normally, that right now seem like, things we need to jump into and try and help people with. We do that every single day because we found in the fleet market, most guys go to the local truck shop. And the local truck shop is generally just, a general auto repair facility or a dealership that's still focusing on the technical side. We focus on the deliverables for convenience. So if there's something that you can think of to make something more convenient, I would imagine that if you ask us, we probably already do it.
I have a question that was typed in that fits right into that about making it more convenient for them. Mark Cunningham is asking, does fleet work have priority once it's in the shop? And he says, good morning.
Yes, good morning. So Kim, that question one more time.
Does the fleet work have priority once it's in the shop? So in your case, it's all of your customers are fleet, but I guess did you ever have a time that it was both? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Back in 2005, when I started to really make the transition to fleet 100%, I knew what I needed to do. It took me till 2007 to make the full commitment, which was I actually moved from one location to the next, and I did not notify any of my retail customers. We completely left that market and prioritized fleet 100%. For somebody that's trying to do both, I gotta tell you that yes, fleet would take priority, because one of the things you're going to need to do to attract a fleet is be really good at turnaround time, reducing their downtime. Downtime reduction, especially in times like now, where we have guys are probably shorter staff, maybe they don't have as many vehicles on the road, reducing their downtime is paramount. That creates a priority situation.
Thank you.
Excellent. Perfect. Kim, anything else we need to cover? Any other questions that have popped up?
Not right this second.
Okay, Patrick. So kind of, looking at that fourth area of focus, the fourth question we'd kind of discussed, what are really what are the number one things that fleets are looking for? Do they want discounts? Do they want, we've just kind of talked about that kind of front of the line service, or they want a better warranty? I mean, what are you finding? You say you focus your deliverables around their needs. So maybe help us define the needs that you've really seen they're going to care about the most.
So, the way that you worded that question, I can answer it directly this way first, and then I'm going to back in some other things. What are they going to ask for? They're going to ask for discounts. They're going to ask for terms. And why are they going to ask for that is really the question. They're going to ask for that because they really don't know what else to ask. They don't know what to ask. So you have to lead the conversation. You have to be able to, as we said earlier on, actively listen, talk about and create solutions, talk about things that you do differently, and start to give them conversation points that are not focused around what's it cost me or can I have terms. We have found that those questions are asked generally because fleets really don't know what else is out there. They don't know what they're supposed to ask. It's not like, buying a lawnmower or a tractor and, is it zero turn? Is it not zero turn? All the questions you can ask that are very, very specific. Most guys looking to, or girls looking to get fleet service don't know what to ask. So they're going to lead with, what's this cost me? Get away from that.
It's really interesting. And I'm going to smile during this, and Kim knows why, because that's the one thing we talk about with phone shoppers when they call up and say, how much to put brakes on my car? It's not that much different. They don't know how else to begin the conversation or the relationship inquiry. So it just starts with what appears to be the most applicable, which is price. So it's interesting that, it's working very much the same in that world. If you control the conversation of really listening to their needs and then building your solutions around it, price becomes less of an issue. It's more about the value that you can deliver, solving their problems.
Right. And Mike, you just said it, solving their problems. If you're sitting in front of a fleet, if you're on the phone with them, or if you're in their office and you're having that conversation, they have a problem, or they're not taking their time with you because they got to run their business. You actively listening, the job you have at that period is to start to understand what that problem is, maybe more so than they do. They know they're sitting with you because it's uncomfortable. They don't like their fleet. They don't like how it's being handled. It falls on the wrong side of the P&L statement. There's a lot of costs involved. They just know it's a disruption. They don't know what the solution is, but they know it's a disruption. They know it doesn't feel good. So they immediately go to cost and those things. If you can dictate the way that conversation will go from your active listening, you can, just like the retail customer, completely get away from that and solve a problem, which is ultimately what they have and what they need.
And this is where you truly have to know your value proposition. I still today, all the discussions we have about it, all of the 20 groups, the coaching, all of it, most shops do not know their value proposition. When you ask them what separates them from everyone else, what do they offer that no one else is, and they always come back with, well, we fix it right. We charge fair prices.
Everybody
And it's, they really don't know what is their differentiator or their value proposition. So, more important than ever, you have to know that. So do you have any tips for how does someone sit down? Did you make a list one day and say, okay, this is what makes me different, and then go through and cross off all the things everyone else is doing and see what's left? Or
two comments, and ask me that question again in 30 seconds. But I wanted to touch on what you just said first. So we fix it right. We do it on time. We're a great value. All of those things, right? That value proposition that people have. I would ask that all shop owners think about this for a second and think about go to your favorite restaurant. And if the expectation was that they were going to cook it right, and this is what was going to thrill you, and they were going to bring it out to the table on time, not cold. These are all basic expectations. These are all things that when you're going to a restaurant, you assume is going to happen. There's no value in them cooking it correctly. That's an assumption. Cooking it in a fantastic way and serving it differently than any other restaurant would be why you would go there, not because they cook it right. Same as when they deliver it, when they bring it to the table, the waitress, the waiter, how they serve it, that's what it's about. If they just bring it out and it's 30 minutes late and it's cold, right? Do you see where I'm going with this? You have to understand that it is not a value proposition. It does not fall on the client's ears. I go there because they do it right. They assume you're going to do it right. So we have to get beyond that. Your
So
other
how did
question,
you get beyond that? How did you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to just throw away all these things, loaner cars or rides home or the other things, that we just discussed, and
yeah.
get down to the meat of really what your value proposition was, what you can offer that no one else can?
So the first day that really happened for me, I was at an AASP meeting, Auto Service Association meeting, that I had been a regional delegate for several years. And I was sitting in a room with about 30 other shop owners. And as normal, 27 of them were complaining. 27 of them were talking about what wasn't going right or what their problems were, or whose fault it was, or anything else. But one thing that meeting after meeting that kept coming up, because this was a bit of a slow period, were people talking about, guys in the room and girls in the room were also talking about fleets and what a pain in the neck they were, that they were dirty, that every time we lifted it up, dirt would fall on us. My guys don't like being under the hood. They always want terms. They always want discounts. They make me work. They want it faster than we can do it. They need it today. So as all this griping is going on, it just became very clear to me that there was a niche here. There's a market here. Why doesn't someone just take these supposed problems and find solutions for them? So we immediately started to run with the fleet model, which was clean the truck first, clean it after, pick it up, deliver it. We put a rapid repair assessment program in place where they know what's wrong with a broken truck, not a diagnosis, an assessment within 4 hours. So they could plan the rest of their day. They could plan their deliveries, whatever had to be done. So we just started to take those, I know I hate to say it, but the issues that the other shop owners were complaining about, we started creating solutions for them, and we started to bring it to the market, and it started to take off.
That's beautiful, and the reality is what a phenomenal way. Just like you were talking about with your differentiators early, you listen to what a consumer wants, and you create solutions around their problem. In this particular case, we kind of listened at a different angle, but what a unique way to be able to figure out, how can I solve a problem? They're complaining about what people are complaining to them about. Solve the complaint. We've got the market model. So obviously, it's been a great success for you.
Yeah, and understand what I mean by listening to the other guys in the room complaining. With no judgment on my part, there's complaining in every room you're in a business situation. And if you listen hard enough, if you actively listen then, as well as actively listen to your client, if you actively listen when you're around other business people and they are always talking about their challenges are opportunity. It's opportunity for someone to seize and grab. Correct. Find a way to navigate through those challenges. In our industry, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of opportunity to grab by just listening to the industry as well, and what the challenges are in our own industry and finding solutions for it. That's what creates niche markets and everything.
Good. That's awesome. Thank you very much for that great answer that really, not only ties, but really helps define, how you can be successful with this, whatever model you're talking about. So, yeah. All right. Well, so, I guess my next question for you would be, the hazards. What is something that we need to avoid? What are they going to ask for that's going to get you in trouble?
So, and I think we covered that, but we'll go back to it. It's discounts and terms. Again, it's dictate the conversation, lead the conversation. So those are the hazards. The hazards are agreeing to things that they're asking for only because they don't know what else to ask. And you're in a position where you're sitting in front of somebody that you think has 30 or 40 or 50 more vehicles that could instantly be yours, and you find yourself agreeing to things that you don't necessarily want to agree to. Lead the conversation with your value. Stay away from those pitfalls.
So, and excellent. I feel like, my next question for you, I feel like you've almost really answered for us, which is, about devising the fleet plan. Where do you start from? Well, you've kind of already told us, this is about actively listening, finding solutions, leading the conversation around the things. It's not so much a plan where you have a cookie cutter you apply to all of your fleets. You're really devising solutions, or how can I adapt my value proposition to their exact need?
Yeah, I would talk to the retail guys as we are right now and say, start with your existing business model. Kim kind of said that earlier. Start with what you already do for the person standing at your counter. You do exceptional things. You pick up, you deliver, you wash, you clean, you do all of these other things for the guy that's standing at your counter. Take what you already do, adapt it into a commercial model. You don't have a lot of work to do here. Adapt it to a commercial model and launch it. Again, most of these guys are used to dealing with truck shops that are not nearly as clean, not nearly as professional. Everything goes in line. So take what you already do and see how you could create a fleet message out of that.
So Patrick, one of the things that I think is interesting, understanding a lot about your model, because your model is very much maintenance based. You'll fix their problem, but you're in a partnership to help them prevent. And I was going to ask, how do you devise that maintenance plan? That's kind of how are you transitioning your people? But I think you may have just answered it, because we're already providing those solutions and conversations in the general world. Are you just taking that plan and adapting it in your world?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not all that different.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, so then we kind of have a plan. We know what we want to do going into these fleets. We've got a direction of how we're going to learn and control the conversation. One of the things that I think is important is, a lot of general repair shops will make a contact. They'll reach out once and then be frustrated. Well, I can't get any fleet business because I just, I sent them something and they didn't show up. Yeah. How frequently would you visit? How frequently are you trying to get in front of people as you develop, try and make that connection and get your foot in the door with them?
Yeah, until you get the account or they kick you out.
So
Okay.
wait, let me because this concept of, being consistent and staying diligent and would it be fair to say, Patrick, that it's similar to calling on, deferred recommendations and other things for our members and reminding them of services they have not performed yet?
So yeah, let me add on to that of knocking on the door till they kick you out. It's to Mike's point, it's not as much about the frequency as it is the consistency and the message. You've got to have the frequency, but the consistency and the message are more important. And Kim, to your point of the maintenance side, correct? What's done to generate the maintenance business? I mean, all of our companies, including ATIs, every business, they're numbered. It's a mathematical equation, right? So let's just look at it this way. So let's take a shop that needs, I don't know, Mike, how many cars a day you need? 5, 10? What's your goal per day? You need 10 cars a day, right?
Sure. Great. Excellent start point.
Yeah. So 10 cars a day is what you need. It's no different in fleet than I feel it is in retail, as I feel it is at ATI, as I feel it is in any other business. It's a mathematical equation. How many contacts do you need to make per day to get 10 people to come to your business? If it's 200, then you need to touch one way or another 200 people a day, and you are guaranteed to succeed at 10 vehicles a day. If you decide that you want to be a bigger company and you want 20 vehicles a day, you already have the formula. Now we have to touch 400 people a day, because we know that every 200 people that we touch in one way or another, we are going to get 10 vehicles to fall out of the bottom. Kim, to your point, it's no different with maintenance. If we track all of the maintenance of our clients, and we know how many PM services we need to have each and every day. So we know exactly how many people we need to touch via outside sales, text, email, reminders, whatever it may be. It's mathematics. Figure out how many vehicles you need, figure out how many people you have to touch to get that many, and get to work.
So for those of you out there that tell your coaches, well, we called 20 people and no one came in, or they didn't answer us, called 200 and then call another 200. Patrick, I have a question. People are writing in asking about the signs behind your head, the grind and hustle. Can you touch on that for a second? Because it's a question that keeps popping up to me in Messenger.
Okay. I just need to see it every day. To be honest with you, there's no magic. I like to say, to my staff, to the people around me, we always talk about one thing that really, there's no magic pill in any of this. especially right now in the situation we're all in. There is no magic pill. There's no magic answer. Fleet doesn't fix it. Retail doesn't fix it. Nothing fixes it. What does, the only thing that I will say that fixes it is your determination to fix it. For me, it's hustle, it's grind, and then it's execute, and then it's repeat. Hustle.
Can you read
grind,
the statements underneath the grind and hustle? Because we could see
Sure.
grind and hustle, but not what's written under it.
So move out of the way for a minute. You can see it, grind as a verb to perform repetitive tasks over and over in order to attain the goal. I mean, we just spoke about that, right? I mean, we just spoke about how many people a day do you need to touch to get to the goal. It's in every aspect of life of what we do. How many times you need to do something to get what you need to come out of the bottom. That's defined right there on the wall. And hustle is the only controllable pillar of success. So that falls right in line also. You just said, Kim, that you have people that say, well, I called 20 or I called 10, but nobody's really responding. I mean, is that really hustle? I mean, have you figured out the math yet? You only need to do it for a few weeks, because if you do it every single day and you call everybody every single day, after 2 weeks, you know how many calls you made and how many vehicles fell out of the bottom. Now you know what the equation is. You got to hustle, you got to grind, and then you have to execute. You got to do it. It's the key. There's no other magic pills.
I think you just said it exactly there. There's no magic in this. It honestly really comes down to, identifying, understanding, and being willing to put in the grind and hustle. So great questions they asked, and a great opportunity for you to really define, what your success has been, because again, it's not magic, it's grind.
It's not. I want to clarify one thing. That does not mean that you work 12 hours a day. It does not mean that you work 15 hours a day or 20 hours a day. I will be perfectly honest, I don't. But the hours that I put in, I am fully focused. I have every single day, I have a list of critical tasks that have to be done. It's completely different from your to-do list. You have a short list of critical things that have to be done every single day. And the only thing that goes on a critical task list are the things that move your business forward. That's what hustle and grind is about. It's not about working longer and harder than everybody else. It's working smarter and more diligently and making sure you're tackling the difficult things.
Patrick, I don't think I could possibly love you any more than I do right now. I got to tell you, that's something I usually reserve to tell Mike Haley, but you know what? I holy cow. So I have a question that's written in. Darren and Bradley are both saying, we service many fleets, but many of them have their own shops and most are in construction. These guys like to do as much as they can on their own. We've struggled to earn the maintenance and gravy work. We get the difficult jobs. That's about it. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, difficult jobs are great. Don't worry about it. Change your focus. Take the difficult jobs. Become their number one for the difficult jobs. They pay well. They expect to pay more because they don't want to do it or they're not capable of doing it. So when somebody has an in-house mechanic, there's a solution for that as well. Become their partners. Most of the time you have far more technology than they do. Open it up to them. You have far more tech lines, Identifix, whatever it may be. You have far more resources. Open all of those up to those guys for nothing, for no charge. Those mechanics in that shop should know that they can come in your shop, talk to your guys at any time, use your information systems, use your heavy truck information systems, whatever it may be. You want to partner so that you can earn the bigger, heavier jobs. The industry is simply just not about gravy. We get it, but it's not about that.
Awesome. Great perspective too. I think, I think that's one of those things where, it's turning a perspective of, well, we only get the junk into, hey, listen, I'm going to figure out how to get more and more of that junk. And as you say, you can't be afraid. I'm going to ask you here in just a little bit about the profit model. But, again, you can't be afraid to charge, for that, as you say, that thing they don't want to do or can't do. So you might as well partner up so you get it.
You're right. But remember, it's only junk if you have decided it's junk. It's only difficult work if you decided it's difficult work. It's only the heavy, cumbersome stuff if you have decided that. And if you've decided that, I can guarantee you that your staff feels that way and they feel like they're getting used and abused. You have to have a paradigm shift in that area, and that just has to become part of what you do. And the guys in your shop that are doing it, will to them, that will become the gravy. Gravy is what you make it.
It's an excellent point. Life is about perspective, right?
Yeah.
Are you half full, are you half empty? So, well, excellent. Well, talking about some of this, you talk about it actively seeking and going after it, but from that side. So one of the things that ATI is really promoted and shops are doing a tremendous job at, is this idea of integrating technology and process. So courtesy checks. So thinking about it from a courtesy check process, a lot of fleets, a lot of what we hear is, oh, well, we can't check that vehicle out. They don't want a courtesy check. They only want us to take care of what they asked for. How do you devise a courtesy check system for fleets? And what do you do with the ones that don't want that inspection?
So the ones that don't want the inspection, let's start there. The ones that don't want the inspection, you fire them. That's the first thing you do. They're not your customer. Secondly, devising a system of courtesy inspections is really no different than your retail shop as well. In fact, it can be easier because you can go right to the DOT guidelines and create a courtesy inspection based off of the DOT guidelines. The name courtesy inspection goes out the window, and that is your preventive maintenance inspection. It's your PMI. And it's done every single time. You can market yourself to a fleet client that, yes, they get a DOT once a year, but every time the vehicle comes in your shop, they're also getting that DOT inspection in the PMI. So they are well taken care of from a safety perspective.
Excellent. And just out of curiosity, are you using any of the newer technology, the digital inspection platforms? Have you found that fleets appreciate that? And does it change that equation for you?
Yeah, we do digital inspections on every vehicle. We send the inspection, even to the fleets that say they don't want it. They get the inspection. We tell them, we'll delete it, but it's going to go. It's our process. It's what we do. It's how we keep digital records of what's going on with your vehicle from one step to the next, because a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, if you have questions, we have photographic, information. If you want to sell that truck, we have a package we can give you to help sell it. So they can delete it if they want. And if they're really, really firm that they don't want it, like I said, fire them.
Excellent. Appreciate that. That is one of those points that I think shop owners really need to hear, especially as it relates to fleets, because I get so many of them that do say that, oh, they don't want it. They've told us not to send it, but really it's a tool that you need to make sure that they understand it's part of your process and we're doing it for your protection.
Right. So go back to that mathematical equation we talked about. Keep making your phone calls, keep adding fleets or clients so that you can eliminate that guy that is probably an issue in other areas. If he doesn't want that, you can bet he's probably got other, you probably have other sore points with that company. So whether it be payment, whether it be communication, there's probably other sore points. We have found that 100% of the time, if they don't want an inspection, it's because they don't want to know, and then they want to hold you responsible. So, I would say you probably have other issues with that account.
Okay. So, one of the things, we're getting through this, gang. I promise you, we had 12 great points we wanted to touch on. We're about 10 through the list, so we're getting there. But, one of the questions that's often raised, and this is maybe thinking a little bit more along the business that's maybe has some level of fleet penetration, but they're really struggling with or trying to decide how much can I allocate to my fleet resources? When is fleet too much? When am I dangerous, or where am I in a dangerous situation, or where am I vulnerable because of fleet relationships? Thinking back to your early days, and I kind of know where the answer is going to go, but when you had both a retail model and a fleet model, how did you decide how much of your model you're going to dedicate to fleet? How can you help people that maybe have that fear of becoming too fleet dependent maybe reconsider that a little bit?
Well, I think first we'd have to define what fleet dependent would mean. So if you're going to get into the fleet business and it's to generate revenue only, you're making a mistake. And that's what would make it fleet dependent. If you are sincere and have a passion for creating a fleet division, then you're going to grow it just like any other division. And however big it gets. Trying to decide and draw a line of what's safe and what's not safe is probably your first mistake. Then what you're doing is you're setting things up and putting parameters and putting roadblocks in on on what could be the growth of your business in one area or another. I would say that you measure and you understand already your ability to manage risk. And if you feel that you have a higher tolerance to manage some risk, then I would say that you jump in, you look at the investment needed, you look at where you want to be long term. We talk here a lot about long-term goals, not just short term. We have a lot of stretch goals. Those stretch goals dictate for us, our tolerance a lot of times. Where do I want to be in 5 years? Can I get there with my current model? If you want to be somewhere where you're not in 5 years and you can't get there with your current model, you may want to look at upping your risk a little bit, and you might want to look at removing some of the barriers that you might have put on yourself, whether that's retail or fleet, and start to understand, am I what's holding us back with these prejudgments of how big I want to be in each area. Does that answer your question?
It does, very much so. And I think that's a very profound way of switching the way that you look at something, from more about understanding and letting it be part of your plan, not simply evaluating it from how much could it hurt me or cost me. So I think that's a great perspective.
Yeah, anything you go into trying to predetermine how much this could hurt me or cost me is going to hurt you.
Yeah,
I can guarantee
great
you
point.
that.
Great point. Never make an investment from what it's going to cost you, only what it can make you.
Right.
Excellent point. Well, but it does make, we think about, as you say, are you more risk averse, or, we talked a little bit earlier about the profit and the margin model. That lends itself into how much risk are you willing to take, understanding your needs. Does fleet really change the profit model that much? Are you operating on a completely different profit model than maybe we would in a more retail sector?
So I'd like to answer that this way, slightly. But no, our goals are still the same. And we have a far more profitable fleet business than most. And I want to explain that. My profitability here is much more in line with a regular retail facility than most fleet shops. Again, it's a paradigm shift. Most fleet shops, if we go back to those original questions, right? Most fleet guys are discounting. They've told themselves they can't get more than 30% on parts. They've told themselves they've got to drop their hourly rate, right? They pretty much have created a poor GP model because they entered that arena instead of having a paradigm shift, creating a value proposition, and bringing it to market. You do it in that order and do it that way, you can run a profitable business at a very high volume.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And I think that's what is really most important. The profit model is dictated based upon the model you build, your demand, your need, and what do you take forward to the model. If you attract, emergency only, I need discounts, put me on term style fleets, you're dictating that part of your business will be non-profitable, as opposed to going after fleets that appreciate your differentiators and are willing to pay for the premium value that you're providing. Not that much difference between us and, let's say, in the general world and let's say the franchise world, where maybe it's a little bit more of a quick service style model. So great paradigm, a great understanding there for sure.
So let me add also that, just to finish that point, that a lot of times that happens, most of the time that happens in the fleet market, because we go back to some of those original things we were talking about. Those fleet guys out there that are operating at lower profit margins are not fulfilling the hustle and grind model, right? Of how many people do I need to call? How many people do I need to be in touch with? So they've settled for the fleets that they have that are dictating the terms and assuming that that's the fleet business. Ramp up your calls, ramp up your contacts, and you'll find that there's plenty of companies out there that want the differentiator, not that bottom feeder situation. You just have to get to the right numbers.
Awesome. And I'll just tell you, technology is a great thing because you kind of froze in the middle of that, but luckily I popped back in at just about the moment you were done. So Patrick, the last question for you is, we kind of, because one of the questions that really comes up quite a bit when we talk, with shop owners about fleet, is understanding what their expectations are going to be on how that's going to affect their cash flow. is all your billing, is it a 30, 60, 90? Do you have to do lots of dealing with third parties? I mean, how does your cash flow AR, how does that differentiate from maybe some of the models that people would be a little bit more accustomed to?
It's different. And it's something that we're in the midst of working on changing right now. So yes, you're going to deal with third parties. It's not a bad thing. Most of the third parties we deal with, their tolerance for us to be successful is in place. We get paid quickly from them. So third party is not a bad thing. You can negotiate deals. You can offer more services to them also. You have to remember to look at third party as a customer. ARI, Element, Enterprise, whoever that may be. I think one of the things that we all do, because we get some of those vehicles, is we fail to recognize that is a client. That guy on the other end of the phone that's trying to tell us what he wants to spend on that vehicle is a client. Sell to them. Sell them why you should be doing what you're doing. It's no different. We sell to them every day. We look at them as, when a vehicle comes in and it's a third party vehicle, we have two clients. We have the guy behind the wheel, and we have that third party, and we address them both as a client, not one as a governing body that's trying to beat us down. That's not the model we take. As far as terms go, do not jump into the fleet model and immediately start offering people terms unless you have the financial wherewithal to do that, the credit lines to back it up, or whatever it may be. Unless you have a structure in place to bankroll people, to collect AR, to manage it, do not get into that market. So they're going to ask for it, but don't get into that market if you're not prepared for it.
Did you find, at least initially, is that a limiting factor in who you're able to partner with in fleets?
In all honesty, we went too far. We didn't limit it as much. We were a little more free with credit than we should have been. We're much more structured at that right now. We are certainly more inclined to ask for credit card payments, put credit cards on file, join a third party. Let's go through them. We look at every option first now before we just hand out financing. Now we're large enough that and we're financially strong. We can operate and run an AR department, which we do. I would not suggest the everyday guy jump in and enter the AR market. It's another division in your company. It's not just a fleet. AR is an entirely separate division that needs to be managed and needs to have people doing it.
Excellent point. And I think great advice for what ends up being one of the major fear points and stumbling blocks. So, Kim, any further questions that you have here? I think, we've tied Patrick up and tapped into his expertise for quite a bit this morning. And I think have some great, insight as to successful ways to get in. Do you have anything on the Facebook side?
Yeah, there's two. If I don't know how quickly, Patrick, you can answer, and then any other ones, just to post in the comment, and we'll try to get Patrick to revisit us or email me at khickey@autotraining.net. But two of the questions that have been sitting up here for a bit is, Chris would like to know, how do you deal with the management companies, the fleet management companies? He's had some experience with them, and when a management company's handling it, he said that they really try to dictate the terms. So what's your suggestions for that?
Lead. They're going to want to dictate, but again, sell who you are, what you are, your differentiators. They do want to take that front seat, but it does not mean that if they're in the driver's seat that you can't ride shotgun. Most people assume they have to get in the back seat. You don't have to. Get in the passenger seat with them. Work with them.
So treat those management companies the same way you spoke about earlier, dealing with the owner and manager and all of that. And then another one, Amanda says, if the economy tanks further and landscape/construction companies shrink, has your experience been that they lay off their technicians, or do they try to do even more in-house?
Well, both. So I guess our question is, if a facility has in-house mechanics, what happens there? Yeah, a lot of times it's opportunity. A lot of times mechanics are laid off. We're finding that right now. There's some in-house shops that are sizing back. We're trying to seize those opportunities. Our call volume right now, our outbound call volume, we've tripled, because we know that we have one opportunity. Two, we have a crisis out there that we have to address. So we have immediately We're 10 days into tripling that call volume, no different than what you're feeling inside. You can bet if you're laying somebody off or thinking that your volume's gone down and you might have to do that, you can bet those companies are looking at the people that they feel they can do also. And a lot of times the mechanics in the shop are on that list.
Yeah,
Okay.
sadly so. Sadly so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on here this morning. I can just tell from the comments and the engagement, this is a wonderful topic, and I hope we get to speak with you again. And then just before we close off this morning on our Live at 9, two things for today. Just want to throw out there, 10 o'clock. I think most of you probably saw my live post yesterday that coaches Kevin Myers and Mike Warren are going to be hosting a non-denominational, I can't even think anymore. Non-denominational. I said it so many times yesterday. It's like a tongue twister now. Prayer and inspiration group for anybody, completely optional. We're not going to do it live on our shop owners page because that's not, what it's about, and everybody has different beliefs and all of that. So if you would like to join them at 10 o'clock, the link you can find on my post from yesterday, and that will be after today, going to be every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 o'clock. And today we're also going to have another live Facebook post. Employment attorney Jennifer Grady Blecka will be on with us to talk about some of the things that are going on now with the furloughs and other things, with some legal tips for that, and also your paperwork, making sure that your I-9s and any other documentation that you should be having on your employees, especially with some people filing for unemployment and different things now, it's more important than ever to have all your ducks in a row for that. And so she'll be on at 3:30 Eastern time today with that live. And then as always, these will be, they live on Facebook forever. So you'll be able to rewatch them. We're getting them edited and also putting them in the resource center in two places. We have a new webinar topic category, which is the COVID-19 response. And also we have a tab for COVID-19 that has every resource, every email we've been pushing out, every link, everything there. So if you can't find what your coach sent you, or you hear something on here that you want to refer to, try to go to that page. So anything else, Mike or Patrick, in closing?
No, I just want to thank Patrick. Your time today, as always, we run a little longer than we planned on it. Both you and I love the opportunity to chat and talk, but I think, your insight today, is incredibly invaluable, and maybe correcting some of the misbeliefs, that a lot of shop owners have about fleet and the fleet possibility. I think, as we're looking at our current situation, the acuteness of the situation that we're in, it only stands to reason that as one part of your market shrinks away from you, other parts of your market will open up. And, right now, fleet is represented in many cases by these other essential businesses. And so trying to work a mechanism that potentially gets you another market stream, another demographic, another profit center, how you want to look at it, I think is an invaluable opportunity. And one of the reasons why we wanted to push it forward in this forum as quickly as we could. So thank you again, Patrick, for your expertise and your insight. Not only inspirational, but quite honestly, very revolutionary in the thinking. So hopefully you've kind of twisted perceptions a little bit today, and people have more confidence moving forward and a little more excitement in trying to engage what is otherwise, a huge profit center opportunity.
Yep. Patrick, I want to leave you with the last word. What is one action step for everybody sitting on here today saying, oh my gosh, how do I get started? What do I do? This is great information. One action step that you can sign off with, that if somebody's interested in, they need to do this now.
Self-evaluate. Where am I? Am I ready? Your team won't be ready unless you decide that you're ready.
Wonderful advice. Thank you all.